This is my 4.6 redo. So for monopolistic competition, there are low barriers to entry, which means there are no profits in the long run and there are no losses in the long run. But during the short run, there can be economic profits and losses. So what that would look like for profits, so first we have the demand curve and the marginal revenue curve, which are both downward sloping because for monopolistic competition, the products differ, so they have control over the price. Even though there are some substitutes, the firms have control over their prices, so the demand is downward sloping. So for profits, this is price, this is quantity, and you draw on your average total cost curve, find where MR equals MC, or not average total cost, marginal cost. Then you find where MR equals MC right here, up to the demand, because that is what people are willing to pay for it, and that is your price. This should be up there. That is your price, and then down here is the quantity. So then you draw in your average total cost curve, which intersects the marginal cost at its lowest point. But since we're doing profits, this is going to be above the marginal revenue. So it can be somewhere in here. And then right here is that. So down here is the total cost. The total profit is up here because this whole thing is the total revenue. So this area is your profit. So for short run losses, you again have your downward sloping demand curve and downward sloping marginal revenue. And you draw in your marginal cost. And again, go where MR equals MC to find your price and quantity. So for the price, you go up to demand. And then you can shade in, so after you draw your average total cost curve, which for losses is going to be above the marginal revenue and the demand slopes, but it's still intersecting the MC at its lowest point. Wait, it's not supposed to be. So then you're gonna go from your quantity up to the marginal cost, or the average total cost curve, and all the way over, this is your losses. So when the firm enters the long run, they are not making any profits or any losses, so they are exactly at equilibrium, they are breaking even. So again, you have your downward sloping demand curve, just not a straight line, downward sloping marginal revenue curve, and then again have your marginal cost curve. You find where MR equals MC, quantity up to demand, over to price. And then the average total cost for this is going to be exactly at MR equals MC, because this is it, breaking even. So they do not have any profits or any losses. So for a perfectly price discriminating graph in a monopoly, you start with the demand curve, which is downward sloping, and then that is equal to marginal revenue, because for price discrimination, everyone is paying what they are willing to pay. So as the price goes down for each customer, each person that buys something in the monopoly, which the monopoly are price makers because there's only there's only one firm. So the demand equals the marginal revenue, because as each unit is sold, you aren't lowering the price for the last unit like it was for the monopolistic competition, where the marginal revenue is below the demand curve, because every time there's a new unit sold, then the price would be going down. But for this case, they're price discriminating, so each profit or each person that is being sold a product, the price just goes down, but it does not change the price of the previous customer. So down here you still have quantity, and up here you still have price. And for this, then you would draw in the marginal cost curve, like usual, and you can do your average total cost, which still intersects at the lowest point on the marginal cost curve. And for this, there is no consumer surplus because the consumers are paying whatever they are willing to pay. Like if they're willing to pay $100, they're paying $100. If they're willing to pay $20, they're paying $20 because they're price discriminating. So the monopoly is getting people to pay whatever they're willing to pay. And there's no like set price for this either because it depends on wherever they are on the graph. And for profits, you're going to just go to where the marginal cost equals the ATC. So you're going to go right down. So you go from marginal cost down to ATC and go over to the price point and go up from here, which is where MC is equaling MR equals MC. And this actually whole area is profits. So this is the entire area of profit because anything here down to the average total cost, they are making more money. So for the natural monopoly graph, you're going to start with a graph that's similar to the perfect competition or the monopoly graphs. And you are going to add in your average total cost curve, which is going to be starting high and then slowly getting lower. And then the same thing for your marginal cost, except it's going to start a little lower. And then slowly, at some point, these two are going to intersect. And then your marginal revenue equals marginal cost. This is your profit maximizing point. So for this graph, it can be a regulated monopoly if there were to be like a price floor or a price ceiling on the monopoly, and then like a government could put something on it like that, and then the monopoly is allowed to exist but has to follow those regulations, and that would look like something like they put a price floor at, let's say, $5, and they can only charge that amount for consumers. But an unregulated monopoly is what it would have looked like before, when there's not much competition and they can charge above the marginal cost because there's not very much competition and they are price makers. So for regular monopolies, it's going to look similar to a monopolistic competition where we have the downward sloping demand curve as well as the downward sloping marginal revenue curve. So then you are also going to add in your marginal cost curve and once again go up to demand for the price because monopoly is a price maker because they are the only firm in the market. And then you're going to add in your average total cost curve. So for this case, we're going to show monopoly earning profits. So the average total cost curve is going to be above the marginal revenue line. So it's going to look like that for the average total cost. And then you are going to go up to the demand and go over to the price. And then where the average total cost starts, you're going to go over to here. And this is your profits box. If the demand for a product in this industry were to increase, it would move up to the right and it would move the marginal revenue with it. So the quantity increases and so does the price when the demand shifts or increases.